Welcome to my 2026 Connecticut housing market predictions. I'm Dave with the Bolduc Realty Group. The first one I'm going to talk about is mortgage rates. Everybody likes to talk about mortgage rates. Right now we're about 6.2%. I predict we'll be in the low fives, 5.3, 5.4, maybe 5.5 by the end of the year. Why? The Fed chairman is going to change in May. Powell's out, somebody else is in. I don't know who it is yet. No, I don't think anybody does. But they're expected to be much more dovish, which means they're expected to be more pro-growth, lower interest rate. I think that's going to drive down that'll definitely drive down the Fed funds rate. Although that's different than mortgage rates, it will filter through the system and we'll see mortgage rates come down as well. That's something that's very important. It's going to be very helpful for home buyers to have that more additional buying power because interest rates are lower, but it's also a double-edged sword because you're going to have more buyers stepping into the market because they're seeing those interest rates come down. The second prediction is foreclosures, which is a source of houses. There's been a lot of talk about foreclosures going up 10, 20% in Connecticut. Okay, that is a true statement. But the important thing is you're going off of a very low base. So back in 2010 or 2011, I think the peak was about 15 to 20,000 houses being foreclosed per year. We're about 3,000 now. So it's much, much lower. And so say we're doing 300 houses a month and we add another 10%, say another 20%, so another 60, so now we're up to 360 per month. It's terrible for the people that are going through the foreclosure, but it is not an epidemic. It is not this widespread disaster where we're seeing houses go into foreclosure everywhere. So foreclosures are going to remain extremely low. There's nothing that's really indicating that they're going to go higher. Inventory. We have about a month and a half, 6 weeks of inventory. What that means is that if we were to stop putting new houses on the market, and we were to just sell at the same rate that we're selling now, in about 6 weeks, we'd have no houses left to sell. That's very, very low. We like to have 5 to 6 months of inventory. The challenge is, even if interest rates that I just talked about get down to, say, 5%, there's a lot of people who have 2.5%, 3% mortgages that's still twice what their current mortgage rate is. And they have the same problem as every other buyer if they sell. They got to go find another house, and the inventory is extremely low. So we're going to continue to see a very low inventory position. There's nothing that's been done at the state level. That new law that was just passed is going to have zero impact on inventory because the costs are still extremely high. There was some research that I saw that it could be as much as 24% of the cost of building a new house is related to regulatory requirements, permits, things like that. With that much regulatory overhead, it's not a surprise that they're not able to buy or build starter homes and make them affordable. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Right now, inventory is going to be very low throughout the year. Starting right now at about 6 weeks, it'll go up a little bit in the spring and summer, maybe up to 2 months, 2.5 months, and it'll come right back down at the end of the year. The next thing I want to talk about is another thing that could potentially be good for buyers. And there's been a lot of discussion around fraud, waste, and abuse of government funds, right? It's blowing up in Minnesota right now. They're talking about $9 billion out there. The Government Accounting Office is estimated between $233 and $520 billion a year goes to fraud, waste, and abuse from the federal government. And they also estimated between 20 and 60 billion of that makes it into the housing market, as a place to put the money. Well, that $20 billion at $400,000 per house, which is about the average for both Connecticut and the U.S., is about 50,000 houses. 150,000 if you're talking about the $60 billion number. So if the government is successful in crushing and reducing dramatically that fraud, waste, and abuse, it's going to help buyers because you're not going to have those buyers that have that fraudulent money that they don't care how much money they have to spend to get the house. They just need the asset to hide the money. Those people are going to be gone. And the big benefit is going to be people pushing prices up, bidding prices up with all cash offers. If it is fraudulent, they're pushing up the comps. So the next house that sells is comparing against that one that just sold, and it just keeps going up and up. So this is a potential real win for buyers if we can get the fraud, waste, and abuse under control. The fifth thing that I'm going to talk about is housing prices. And this is the one that everybody's always interested in. Where are housing prices going to go in Connecticut? And I'm talking specifically about Connecticut now. I expect to see 6 to 9% increase over the course of the year. 2025 was about 8%, which is a solid number. And I expect that to continue because, as we just talked about with inventory, the inventory is low and supply and demand is pretty simple. If you have low supply, relatively high demand, then people are going to bid up the prices. And that's what's been happening the last several years. Until we fix the supply problem for housing in Connecticut, we are going to continue to see some level of price appreciation every single year. And it's going to take years to get that fixed. And the last thing that I do want to talk about is rent. So the housing bill that just came out expanded rent commissions and rent control to all cities and towns that have 15,000 or more people. Unfortunately, that's going to cause a lot of problems. Rent control, unfortunately, even though it sounds like a great idea, every time it's implemented, in the areas where there is rent control, the rents do kind of stabilize, but the landlords run out of money, so they don't maintain things. And because they can't raise the rents, they can't afford the buildings anymore, so they sell them, so you have less rentals. And in the areas that don't have rent controls, they see the opportunity and they run the rates up even more, the rent rates up even more. And this is all based on data. This isn't my opinion. This is data. So what we're doing with this law is we're creating a situation where the rental market is going to get worse. So unfortunately, I expect to see 2 to 4% increase in rents. Summarizing, interest rates down between 5 to 5.5% by the end of the year. That's really good, but it could be a double-edged sword for buyers. Foreclosures are going to remain low, so that's great for homeowners. And unfortunately, from a supply perspective, it's not a source that we can count on right now of new houses for sale. Inventory is going to remain low until we fix the supply problem. The fraud, waste, and abuse, hopefully that is a success, and we see that coming down, which will take a lot of those buyers out of the market that have excess cash and they really didn't earn it, so they just want to hide it somewhere. They're so willing to bid up prices. We can get those out of there. The home prices, I see 6 to 9%, and I'm leaning more towards the 8 or 9%, but it really depends on how interest rates go and a couple other things. And then rents 2 to 4% up. That's my predictions for the year. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm right? Do you think there's something completely different? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. And also you can reply to the email because I think a lot of you will end up at this video from my daily emails. If you want my daily email and you don't get it, reply in the comments with your email address or DM me and I'll get you on the list. Until we talk again, Happy New Year if I haven't talked to you, and appreciate you checking this out.